Welcome to the Neverfail Workspaces demo. In today's demo, I'm going to show you this product from two different perspectives, the end user perspective and the administration perspective, and how we make all of that happen. So to start, I'm going to introduce you to the Neverfail Workspaces portal. If you look at the URL here, you can customize this URL, but every Neverfail Workspaces customer is going to have a SaaS portal that's going to allow them to access and administrate their Workspaces environment and allow their customers to launch applications and view their data files and adjust preferences. The Neverfail Workspaces logo here in the top left is persistent, but you can brand the center here. This Neverfail logo in the center is one that I added. And I'm going to show you how to modify and manage your branding preferences later on in this demo. Every user logs in with their email address, so email at company name. So this has to be unique for each customer, but generally it's going to be their email address. So as you onboard Workspaces customers, if you have customer.com, that's going to be user at customer.com. And then they're going to set a password that'll be unique to Neverfail Workspaces. You can also self-onboard. So if you onboard an account at customer.com, any user from customer.com will have the ability to self-onboard and create an account. And when they do, they'll get a welcome email that instructs them on exactly what they need to do in order to start launching applications. They can also reset their own password here. All of this is email driven. So again, it's real important that the email account associates directly with that end user. So I'm going to log in here as my end user account that I've created and show you what an end user experience looks like. Now, once I've logged in, you'll notice at the top right, you can see my login name, and I can apply some personalization options there. I could see alerts. So, for example, if you want to push an alert saying, hey, we have maintenance on Saturday, that would show up here. You can also allow your customers to use a feedback mechanism. This is driven by email, so you could customize the email that the customers, when they submit feedback, will be sent to. Out of the box, when you log in as a Workspaces client, your feedback will submit directly to our help desk. So we use Zendesk on the back end as an example, and Zendesk can take emails and turn them into tickets, and that's exactly what we do. And it's real easy to submit any new feedback here and have that create a ticket so we can immediately aid you with any support. So I'm going to talk about the RDP feed URL in a second. That's an alternate method of launching. From the portal URL, you can launch, you can see the applications that are available here. You can organize them depending on which is most frequently used or what's not. And then to launch, you simply click the launch button, download the RDP file, and launch that application. Now, I had my credentials pre-loaded here because that's an option. You can save credentials so you're not prompted every time. Otherwise, it would be my email address and password, the same one that I logged in to access the portal. So that's one way of launching, and I have Google Chrome started. However, I've used this RDP feed URL to integrate directly with my Windows 10 operating system here, and I can show you a little bit of how that works by going in my Start menu down to my Workspaces folder, and I can launch other applications. So for instance, if I wanted to launch Internet Explorer, or maybe I want to launch other applications here, like say for instance PowerPoint or Word, I can launch those directly from my Start menu. Now, obviously, this is a very seamless experience when doing remote launching, and so we really recommend that when you integrate with your end customers, this is the direction that you take them. And use it, so using that RDP feed URL is really the best user experience. So that kind of wraps up our end user experience. The goal here is that it's seamless, it's integrated, it's easy to use, and it doesn't change a whole lot about the way users use applications. You can also launch full desktops, so this would be a full desktop experience, or you can integrate that full desktop experience with the feed URL, and I could launch a full desktop here directly from my Start menu as well. So I'm going to go ahead and log out now, and we're going to go to the administration experience. I'm going to log in now with the administrator login for this account and show you how we make everything I just showed you from an end user perspective happen. So here, this administrator happens to have some applications published, and those also can be organized. Maybe administrators have different applications that others don't. But really, what you should notice is on the left, there's a lot more options in terms of navigation. But let's start here with alerts. It looks like I have one. And these alerts for an administrator mean that there are changes within the system that have happened or informational events that have happened that may need your attention. So in this case, a create customer workflow had failed. That's probably something I want to investigate. And so if I click on that link, I could get more information on this alert, or I could clear it altogether. In this case, I think we'll go ahead and clear it and go over to workflows and see, okay, yeah, this failed. This actually is just a demo alert, so I'm going to go ahead and clear that out of my system by deleting it. We're going to come back to workflows in a minute. Now that I know I have a healthy environment, I'm going to show you where you spend most of your time, which is in organizations. So inside of organizations, I can create a customer, or I could view customers that I already have created. So if I want to onboard a new customer, I need to select the cloud. So out of the box, you'll be connected and enabled with the Neverfail cloud. This happens to be my S-Cloud instance. And then I need to select a domain. So I already have a domain here. If I wanted to create a new one, I could. What this means is that we're building the entire network infrastructure on the back end. It's really full network automation that allows you to do DHCP, DNS, and Active Directory services, but you don't need to know about any of that because we stand it up entirely autonomously for you. So I've got the domain here. Now I need to name my customer. So this could be a new customer, for example, set a UPN domain. This has to be unique for each customer. So this could be customer.com, for example, and then set a password. Once that's been done, a workflow will kick off that will configure that customer. And what you end up with is an organization, which is really how you manage all of your users, and a workspace, which I'm going to go through in a minute, which is where you manage your infrastructure. So let's look into the organizations here. When I go into my workspaces organization, and this is where I was launching applications a minute ago when I was showing you the end user experience, I could see the most frequently used applications, how many sessions have been opened. It looks like there's a lot of Google Chromes that get launched, for example, here. A lot of time spent with Explorer open. You could just get basic statistics. You could also get statistics on your active user counts per calendar month. So the one of the key features, though, is that I'm able to do my full user management here. If I want to create a new user, it's pretty simple. When I do this and fill out their name, their email, and their phone number, they're going to get an email that's going to help them to onboard. So no further interactions necessary to activate their account. And once they've been activated, you'll notice that their account has a green account would be in green, as opposed to this user doesn't have an active account. They still need to activate it, but this user doesn't have any active sessions. So we could click in here and we could get more detail about this user. If we look on the left in actions, I can edit their information, reset their password. I can resend their welcome email, deactivate them, or delete them. And in the center, if they had an active session, there would be 3 more options where I could end their session. I can message them. So for instance, hey, I just added a new application, log back in. Or I could shatter their session, which is kind of like a remote viewing capability to support their apps. Since I don't have an active session, those aren't available in this demo. If I scroll down, I could see what they've done. So this is a real differentiator for workspaces, is you can see exactly who's done what, when, and where. If you remember, I logged in. This is when I logged into the portal, and then I launched Google Chrome, and I can see exactly where that came from and who launched it. We track everything by session ID. So if you choose to export these logs, you can track sessions end to end through that ID. Then I can see we launched Internet Explorer, Word, closed it out, logged out. So I could tell everything that this user's done. Scrolling down, I can modify their user groups. So groups are how you deploy applications. I'm going to show you how that works in a minute, but basically every user is part of a group and an application deploys to that group. So it's real important to make sure that users are part of the appropriate groups. In this case, I have this user part of several groups. I can remove their group membership directly from their user management page as well. I could view their RDP policy. So there might be different policies per group. We'll talk about that more in a second, but this is kind of the roll up of their total permission set. And I can modify their user preferences. So in this case, I have this user set for high performance, meaning that In high latency situations, this will be the most performant scenario, but I can also set a high quality setting, or I can allow their clients just to auto detect. We also have multi-monitor support, so I can enable or disable that for this user. Now, a bit of glimpse into our roadmap. These user preferences will be available in an upcoming release for end users to modify themselves, so giving end users a little bit more control over their sessions. And another roll-up of this application app usage history specific to this user is at the bottom. So let's go over to groups. In groups, I can create new groups. It's pretty easy. You just need to name the group, and then the group appears here, and then you can manage the group. So for instance, in my HR group, I have a couple of different members. I can remove members if I choose, or I can add members should I choose to do that by selecting any other users here. I can also modify the policy for this group. So maybe for HR, I want them to allow them to print, and I want to allow them to see their local drives. And this will modify that RDP policy for just this group and any members of this group. So that kind of wraps up organizations. The other thing that I said was done when we finished creating customers, we created a workspace, and this is really where the infrastructure and applications come into play. So in this workspace here, this is the one that I was launching applications in the end user demo. You can see that I've got 3 virtual machines in support of this workspace: a network drive host, a desktop host, and an app session host. I get another glance at the app usage history across the workspace, and I can manage my templates. So if we click over into templates, you'll notice I've got 2 different templates. One is a desktop template, and this means when I'm publishing full desktops for users to use, if I wanted to manage this template, I could install applications that those users would see on those desktops. I also have a default app template. In your app template, this is where you install applications that get discovered and are launched through just application launching instead of a full desktop experience. If I want to install new applications, I can hit Start Software Installation. That'll give me an RDP file that I'll be able to use to connect into this template, install whatever application I want, just like I would if it were on a desktop. And then when I finish that install, there will be a Finish button here. This is Finish Software Install, and then I'll see my new application in this list. Now you'll notice that the applications have different statuses here. There's published, supported, and unsupported applications, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I can also add custom applications. These might be applications that aren't discovered, or maybe they're just simply EXEs on the desktop, or usually this is older applications or applications that need to take command line parameters. So let's go directly into the App Store here. This is where you publish applications, and if you'll notice, these are all the applications that I had published into this workspace. I can modify the permissions set on these applications. So like Internet Explorer is only available to the HR group, but maybe I want to allow the help desk to also use Internet Explorer. I can do that. I may also want to publish a new application, and I could just drag it from supported over into published and assign a group here. So we'll say HR has access to that application. And if I have a new app that's currently unsupported, I could just drag that over as well. So say for instance, I want to publish this application, I can move that over into supported. So we have role-based access that really is what drives these 3 different phases of applications. And for maybe a end user administrator, you wouldn't want to allow them to publish applications that you weren't prepared to support. So they wouldn't even see the unsupported column, and they'd only publish out of the supported column. Once an application's been published, or once any changes has been done, nothing happens until you click the republish button. When you do that, if you'll notice, there's a workflow that kicked off, and you can see that running in the top right, where we're publishing a new RDS collection with those new applications and those new permissions set. Once that's complete, the new apps are available, but while it's publishing, application launching is disabled through the portal. Finally, in workspaces, I can modify network shares. So in this workspace, I have a couple network shares that are mapped to M and T. I could create a new network share. We can even stand up a new network share host, or you can use an existing host to create a new share and manage permissions. We can also map existing shares. These will take you in C paths, so we can map any existing network shares you might have within your cloud environment to your workspace. So Let's take a look at that workflow. I'm jumping down here. We're going to talk about clouds in a moment. In workflows, we can see that this is succeeding. If I want to see what it's working on right now, I can see the things that it's done and kind of what it's doing at this moment. So we're going to wait for that to finish. In clouds, out of the box, you're given a never fail cloud, and within that cloud, you're able to launch and manage all of your applications within your S Cloud. So if I click in here, I can see all of the virtual machines that are being used to support this cloud. And you can see that I've got a variety of them for those two workspaces that I have. Remember, I had the demo customer and the workspaces UAT customer. So I've got a few virtual machines supporting these. But they're shared virtual machines. So Workspaces has a concept of multi-tenancy. That means I'm able to put a lot of users on some common infrastructure, and that common infrastructure is the Active Directory infrastructure and the broker and app gateway infrastructure. So when I onboard a new customer, I could choose whether I'm going to do desktops or applications, but no new virtual machines are stood up until I make that decision. And then when I make that decision, only one new virtual machine is required for every customer that I create. And of course, you'll scale that up, or you'll scale that up as you build out more and more users. We generally say that for the best experience, you want to run somewhere in the range of 20 users per session host. And so, properly sized, you may end up having more than one session host or more than one desktop host for your new customer, but it's totally up to you. The goal here is to keep your costs as low as possible for every customer that you onboard. And then you can also make decisions. So if I currently allow them to launch applications, just app launching, but then I want to add desktops, that's a new virtual machine. If I want to add network drives, that'll be another virtual machine. But I could share this network drive host across workspaces in the multi-tenant environment. In a dedicated tenant environment, I'm going to have an Active Directory, a broker, and then any one or more of these machines here in a dedicated environment, and those are completely network segregated environments. So if I want to get some information about these hosts, I could click in and see kind of how they're configured. Here's my space utilization for this network or for this app host. There's the core usage, CPU utilization, RAM utilization. If I want to scale it up, I can duplicate it. Basically, this just says, hey, give me another one of these if I'm having scalability challenges. I can update it. This will patch the machine. If I'm not sure if I want to update, I could check for updates and see if there's any relevant Windows updates that I may want to apply. I can also shut down and reboot this system, and so there's an option for graceful and hard actions on both of these, meaning that graceful is through the operating system, and hard reboot or shutdown would be through the hypervisor. So you can see here we had some updates return. If I want more information, I can just click a link. It'll take me to details on exactly what this patch is. So going back to workflows at this point, we can see that collection has published. It's completed. That means those application changes have been made. It took about 2 minutes. And so we don't have any alerts or anything that we need to pay attention to. Our users just continue working as normal. From the logs perspective, we log everything. So this is definitely a differentiator here. You can actually see everything end to end that we do. From a administration perspective, if you make changes here, if you publish new applications, if you have any errors, if there's any errors you don't even need to know about. For example, if you're seeing a problem or your user's expressing a problem and you haven't seen it, you can always look here, for example, and open up a ticket through your feedback button that would include errors from the logs. And this just really enables you with all the tools that you need without having to dig around and add other tools. This exposes everything within the environment in the logs here, so you don't need to go anywhere else. And you can export these logs should you choose, filter them by a variety of different in a variety of different ways. So we talked a little bit about role-based access in terms of the applications. This is really where that applies. So I have service provider permissions here. That's, this is kind of the top level. This allows you to add policies. Say, for instance, my help desk should only have permissions to modify organizations so they can onboard new customers or see new customers' logs. I can modify those permissions and allow that, so giving them certain rights to certain things. That's really what drives the role-based access here. We also give you organization access, which means that if I have an end customer that has a front desk admin, for example, and when they're onboarding new employees, they want to be able to manage the applications those employees can use, or they want to manage their group memberships, you can give that organization admin the ability to modify whatever they need. We also have cloud level permissions. This is really more of an architecture role. So from your perspective, your architects that are connecting workspaces and orchestrating across the cloud or clouds can have the level of access that they need to add these clouds. Wrapping up with settings, this is where you modify the logo that's on the home page. You can also modify your profile information. This is for help purposes. You can enter your information here and personalize with your time zone. We can support SSL certificates and do and must out of the box. So by default, you'll be enabled if you choose to use the neverfail.com portal URL. You'll be able to use the neverfail.com SSL certificate, but if you want to use your own, you can add it here. We could support third-party AD. So if I wanted to add a different domain, I could do that here. And we could talk more about how that integrates. But basically, Workspaces runs by creating an OU for each workspace within that AD structure. So all of our infrastructure changes will go in there, GPO policies, etc., security policies, everything that we apply automatically really gets applied to that OU. And so integrating with an existing AD means we do need domain admin permissions. Connectors are a concept that allows us to connect to that third-party AD. We need to make sure that there's network routes to it. This is also what allows us to orchestrate on clouds. There needs to be a network route there, and so that connector communicates back to your Workspaces portal over 443. So this basically just allows us to do all the automation that we do over a secure channel. And we talked about all the emails that users might get as they're resetting passwords or onboarding. All that's driven through an SMTP gateway that out of the box is configured for Neverfail. If you want to configure it for your SMTP gateway so it looks like it comes from you, you do that here. So that wraps up our Neverfail Workspaces demo. I hope this helps and I hope you enjoyed it. And we're looking forward to having you as a customer. Thank you.